You know, he's out here looking like LeVar Ball. Why? Because he's a big baller? No, because he's never lost. Mike Sando's article in The Athletic with this headline, Purdy could be the next Montana, Brady, or Dak. And we said, Dak? Why? That seems strange. Well, here's the statistics that Josh cooked up. First 10 starts, very similar. We understand the Montana 49ers bid and the Brady come out of nowhere, be a late draft pick.
And Montana also was a mid-round pick. Montana was third-round pick. Brady, obviously late sixth.
So, Brew, is Brock Purdy hype too high, too low, or just right?
Well, it's interesting. Sando, who does a great job, is covering all his bases, though. He's compared him to all-time greats. I think the top 2 quarterbacks ever to a good quarterback, Dak Prescott. And so, obviously, he's safe either way. It sounds crazy when you put in Montana and Brady with anybody, right? That's right. That's early in their career. But look, nobody at this point in Joe Montana's career, and I'm not saying Brock Purdy's going to be that, but Montana was 2-6 in his first 8 starts. He had 9 interceptions in 7 games his second year in the league. So nobody would have thought Joe Montana was going to be this all-time great. And obviously Tom Brady, nobody thought that too. So who knows what Brock Purdy will be. But I think the hype is just right. I think this is tempered. I think it's like nobody's just going out there fully saying he's going to be Joe Montana, although Rex Ryan said he's the next Joe Montana. Yeah. But I think the hype is tempered. He threw in. He might be Dak.
Right, but that's why the hype's too high.
Dak
he can't even be Dak?
To act like his floor is Dak, the hype is too high. If we listen, his floor is Jimmy G. His floor is Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub, under Kyle Shanahan, that caliber of player, not style. I agree, he's not the same stylistically. By the way, Matt Schaub once upon a time led the league in passing. Believe that? Yep. And you know who was calling his plays and designing his offense? Kyle Shanahan with the Houston Texans. The same Kyle Shanahan that made, RG3 look like he might be the next greatest quarterback ever. Now, with RG3, there is we don't know what he would have been without the injury. The same Kyle Shanahan, that you had Matt Ryan, who was solid for his whole career. Then all of a sudden, 7th highest scoring team ever, league MVP with Kyle Shanahan calling his plays. So the idea that why I say the hype is too high, Brew, and I'll ask you, the idea that, all right, the ceiling is 2 of the greatest of all time. The floor is just a really solid 15-year starter who's going to get multiple contracts after his rookie deal, make a few Pro Bowls. That's not his floor. I'm not saying that it's impossible for him to be better than Dak or any of those things. But the idea that he is
Let me ask you this. Do you think there's a better chance that he's Dak Prescott or one of those mediocre quarterbacks you threw out?
I think right now, if there was only 2 bets I could make, that he will be as good or better than Dak, or that he will be worse than Dak, my bet would be worse. I don't think he's going to be a consistent top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Well, he might win a Super Bowl and maybe an MVP.
He might, but what's so hard now is there's so much hyperbole around quarterbacks, and we're so quick to coronate him and put him into the Hall of Fame. And remember when Dak came out and Carson came out, and everybody talked about how that would be the next great rivalry, all those things that went with it. And I don't want to take anything away from Brock Purdy and what he's done, especially considering the circumstances he came into, playing as a young guy, not making many mistakes. All those things are really positive, but he hasn't really had to play from behind. He hasn't really had to.
They're going to yell at you, coach.
Well, there's the one game against the Ravens.
You can say that's because he's playing really well. Okay, so be it. But at some point, you're going to be in that situation. And the question is, can quarterbacks be force multipliers? And the reality, his team is a force multiplier for him. And that's a great situation to be in, and he's handled it really well. But it's hard to make that distinction of how good he can be because he hasn't really faced.
I would say this.
What adversity has he faced?
Well, Coach, I think being Mr. Irrelevant and stepping into a situation where you're expected to lead this team deep into the playoffs, I think that's adversity. Your first start is Tom Brady, your idol. Everybody's idol at quarterback. I think that's adversity. And then, of course, he played in the playoffs and played great.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go.
Why was your guys' faces and body language so much more polite and accepting when Coach made those
the way that he said
than
it.
every time I've made them the
That's
last
why.
2 weeks?
Because
why?
Coach, because
Very
Coach,
similar.
yeah.
Why?
It's almost verbatim.
Why,
what
I mean, it's Coach and I in lockstep. I've been saying this, and here's Bruce's face every time I do
that
it.
always
Coach,
worries me
every
when
time
we're in
I
lockstep.
say it, here's Bruce's
I
face.
might, like now I might have to.
And Wildes is just like, wow, he's making some really good points.
Because-
This is what I've been saying,
He did say it.
down to and including the adversity thing. And then Bruce says, well, it's different types of adversity. You're talking about specific during the game adversity of we're down 4, there's 6 minutes left.
Well,
they know we
he
have to
came
throw.
back against the Raiders last year. I mean, that's the one chance
And I
he's
went
had.
and watched that game.
Thank you.
The end, that last drive, actually before the show today, and he almost threw a pick on the very first play of
Thank
that
you.
drive.
Yeah,
the dude dropped it. Yeah, I mean it's almost. But I'm
Matt
watching it.
Stafford doesn't have a Super Bowl.
Yes.
I'm watching it, trying to see like what it looks like, and he did. Look, the drive ended up positive. That was the Raiders team now that blew 4 17-point leads. So it's not like we're talking about the 85 Bears.
Let me say this though, and look, obviously Mahomes does so much spectacular stuff that you know he's great in his own right. But Patrick Mahomes went to a team with Andy Reid at coach, Travis Kelce, who already was a star, Tyreek Hill, who already was a star, Kareem Hunt, who at that time had been phenomenal, and a
And the
team that
offense
had
was
made the
clicking.
playoffs 3 straight years before Mahomes even took over the starting job, and nobody punished him
Well, I said the
because
hype
Hold
was
on.
too high. At that
He's-
point.
and there were some people that said, well, if you flip, early in his career, there were questions of flip him and Deshaun Watson. Because they were the same draft class. Put him in Houston, put
But that's
Deshaun
Deshaun
there.
Watson,
and then,
too, who
no,
was
I
playing
get that.
great.
But also Mahomes was undeniable from a not just eye test of, I don't know how many quarterbacks I've seen make that throw.
Yeah,
and there were certain things. And while Purdy's touchdown to interception ratio and the passer rating is right now perfect in basically both accounts, the 5,000 yards and the 50 touchdowns in your first season as a starter was something that, because we had seen that Chiefs team.
I
you know what I
agree,
mean?
and I think he did things that obviously made us go wow.
They weren't very good
I'm just saying we didn't
defensively
punish
either,
him.
right?
Well, and that's the other thing. They did have a bottom 3 defense as opposed to the number 1 across the board defense.
Which made it.
You're
Look at
nitpicking.
Coach, great job. Great job,
Nitpicking, Coach.
Meanwhile, Jayron Kearse, on people questioning just how good the Cowboys defense is after getting rolled by the aforementioned Brock Purdy, we're a great defense. That's what we are. We weren't crowned the best defense in the league when we had a 40-0 win against the Giants. I'm going to check the tape on that. And we're not going to be named the worst defense in the league after what went on Sunday. Brew, are you 100% sure the Cowboys have a great defense? 100. I changed the
No.
question. Thank you.
No, I'm convinced they have a very good defense. A great defense, I'm sorry. And I know some of the all-time greats have given up 35, something like that. But to give up 40-plus basically in 3 quarters. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that San Francisco could have went over 50 against them. To give up 40-plus, you're not a great defense. And, Coach, they're vulnerable to the run. Like, that's the thing. Like, great defenses, it's like we're locking you down on every point.
All-time great right now? We're just great for this season.
I am
Is it
raising
great
the
for
standard
Dallas?
for great.
Great for
No,
But how many great defenses are in the league right now? 'Cause they're not San Francisco. Are they Cleveland?
So that's
the Jets?
the question that I had. Like, to me, they are clearly one of the 6 best. San Francisco, Kansas City, Cleveland, Dallas, New Orleans, Baltimore. If you look at yards, points, eye test, all 3.
So are all those great?
Well, that's the question.
Do you have the
And
Bills
for
in
me-
there or no?
No, not now.
Well,
Not
right.
they lost.
Right.
Yeah, they've lost 3 of their
Vaughn
best
will be
players
back.
due to injury, 1 on each level of the defense. Statistically, the Bills actually are there, but I think no Trey White, no Milano. They lost their D tackle as well. I think they're in a rougher spot. The problem for me is this: they're definitely very good, and they could be great. In order for the Cowboys to be as good as I think they were supposed to be or could be, they have to be in the argument that they're the best defense in football. And right now, you can't argue the best defense in football. If you remember going into the year, I said I think they're going to have the best defense in football.
Yeah.
They also lost Diggs, but they haven't lost, and they lost Van Der Esch as well. So maybe their injuries are mounting as well.
But the hallmark of great defenses are consistency, and they don't have consistency. So when you give up 40 yards against Arizona with
running.
almost 200 yards of that rushing in the first half, and then you fast forward 2 games later and you're giving up 42 points, and the teams that you beat up on were 32 on offense, 31 on offense, and 24 on offense, it's hard to take a step back and say, okay, this is a great defense.
Watch out. Kellen Moore? Watch out. Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore against the Cowboys? Cooking time.
Yeah.
You know what, Wildes? I think
This
that
whole
is for the
stadium
Cowboys.
doesn't stop.
What? A home game?
Might be a must-win.
Ooh! Wow! Well,
Bringing it back.
That's a must-win. Kellen Moore's got something.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.